So anyone that's just joined in, if you just don't mind, we're just to help with the streaming, we'll just put everyone onto mute, and if you can just put yourself onto mute, and then we'll also get people to turn their cameras off. That would be great. Anyone that's just joined, if you just don't mind putting your camera off, just for help with the streaming. And if you can just put yourself on mute while we just go through the info session, and then we'll have an opportunity for everyone to join in. So we're at about 28, Matt, so we're probably about on track.
I think we're there. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Matt. I'd like to welcome you to the Surf Club Facility Program for 2020-21. I'd just like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Welcome to the information session to introduce you to your club's funding agreement and other documents you will need for your grant. This presentation will be available on the Office of Sport website for you to refer once we are finished. I would like to let you know that we'll be recording this session, and as we've mentioned before, could you please leave any questions to the end, switch off your cameras and mute your microphones. I wanted to start by saying the document we use is a standard Office of Sport agreement, and that it's our goal to help you receive your funding. If you're not familiar with agreements like this, don't stress. We hope to put your mind at ease. We want your project to be successful just like you do. We're on the same team. Okay. We'll be discussing the different stages of the grant program and explaining how to best complete your funding agreement, facility use schedule, and various other reporting requirements. You will receive these documents tomorrow morning. We will also cover how you will need to acknowledge your state government funding at media opportunities, such as sod turning events and opening ceremonies. We will also introduce you to your Office of Sport contact officers. I'm one. Hi. So well done everyone for submitting your applications. They were of a very high quality, and we are delighted to get to work assisting you to get your projects moving. So congratulations, we have 29 projects this year that have been successful in the 2021 program. I'd just like to introduce Kathy Gorman from Infrastructure Strategy, Planning and Delivery from the Office of Sport. Kathy's on screen.
Hi everyone. So Matt will be working closely with some of the other colleagues in the Office of Sport to help you in your funding agreement preparation. But firstly, on behalf of the Office of Sport, I'd like to thank you all for attending tonight. It's a really important session. We obviously are trying to get a lot done with the Surf Club Facility Program, and we also have some short timeframes to meet. So Matt will be going through those with you. But on behalf of the Office of Sport, I'd like to thank you for the additional volunteer and support hours that you've put into preparing your application. A big thanks goes out to you for all of you for doing all the work. The job obviously isn't yet done, but the good thing is you won gold, and hopefully, like any good opportunity that you get, that we can help you with the streamlining of these next steps in this session. So feel free to, at the end, jot down any questions you have as Matt goes through the presentation. But also we've got the chat opportunity in the Teams device, so you can put down a question in the chat and we may be able to answer them along the way as well. So feel free also to do that, and we can try and help you out that way. So at the same time, I'd just like to thank obviously Surf Life and Saving New South Wales, in particular Phil Ayres and Stephen Pearce, for their support and ongoing collaboration through the process. Those partnerships are really strong, and obviously the work that they do with you on the ground as well. So big shout out to both Phil and also the funding support team that have probably helped many of you in preparing applications. But what the good news is, the partnership and collaboration will continue. So you would all be pretty familiar with the media now, that the Treasurer, Ms Perrottet, and our new Minister for Sport, Natalie Ward, announced over the last week the ongoing support for the surf lifesaving with 16 million in funding over the next 4 years. So the program will continue as status quo for the next 4 years, and we'll be working, and that's part of the 21-22 New South Wales budget. So that's a new announcement, and we'll be working closely with Surf Lifesaving, particularly Phil, in the next few weeks and months in the preparation for the next round of funding for 21-22. And what's been really good is to also see the Premier and Minister Ward getting out to some of the surf clubs. We had the Premier and Minister Ward up at Tacking Point in the last few days. Not sure if anyone's online from Tacking Point, but what a great opportunity to sell what you do out there at a club land and all the community benefits that happen. So enjoy the session. Right at the end, we'll have this really informal opportunity for you to ask the questions, and we're here to help you out. So take that opportunity tonight to get those questions answered. So thanks, Matt. Back over to you.
Thanks, Anne. So Phil Ayres, Chief Operating Officer at Surf Life New South Wales. He should be along soon. We also have from the Office of Sport, Chad Burnell. Now, Chad's our legal officer from the Office of the Chief Executive. Chad's going to be online throughout this whole process, and can put in his advice certainly at the end if you have any questions. And then myself, I'm Matt. I'll be working closely with most of you guys coming up. So the 2021 Surf Club Facility Program opened on the 18th of December last year, and we are now up to negotiating funding agreements. The quicker we can execute your funding agreement, the quicker we can pay the first milestone, so your projects can start to take shape. We are aiming to have all funding agreements executed and all payments for milestone 1 made by 30th of June to allow you to start work on your projects as soon as possible. So that date, 30th of June, it's not far away. There's some work to be done, but we want to get as much of this money out the door to you guys as we can. We want this to really start moving for you. All funding must be administered and acquitted within 2 years of funding agreements being signed. So the first 9 pages of your funding agreement contains all the project-specific information. So project details, milestone schedule, budget and reporting requirements. This is where you'll fill in your club's information and describe your project. The remainder of the funding agreement contains the standard terms and conditions that apply to your club and the Office of Sport for the use of funds in delivering your project. These are based on the standard New South Wales government conditions that apply for grant funding in order to ensure transparency and accountability in the use of public funds by private entities like yourselves. Please do not sign the agreement just yet. Send it back to your Office of Sport contact and we will have one final check of the details. We will not make any amendments unless it's essential to the project's delivery. So we'll have one quick look over it, make sure everything's where it needs to be, and then we'll have another chat with you before anything gets finalised, executed. Okay, the funding agreement is written in plain English, and the bulk of the information is generic and common to all Office of Sport funding agreements. When completing your funding agreement, please, you'll notice that we have pre-filled some of the information. So all you have to do is complete the fields that are left blank. It'll even say insert in there. We've done a lot of the work for you. Once we reach an agreement, we will send it to you to sign and have witnessed. Please scan each funding agreement as one single PDF document. So not just the signatory page, it needs to be one complete document, and scan it and email it to us. You'll also need to send in an invoice for milestone 1 amount. The invoicing requirements are in your funding agreement. It's all there, it's quite clear. We'll go through the approval process. We will then go through the approval process and pay your first milestone amount to your designated bank account. We already have those details. Please wait until you have all of your supporting documentation and send it in one email. It's much easier to keep track of everything in that way. So we can take your information bit by bit as it comes in, but it is so much easier dealing with the amount of funding programs that we do. If you can just send it all in, milestone 1, and we'll send that up the chain and we'll have that approved for you. So this page is an example funding agreement. You can see that there have been example responses written and comments to explain how they need to be filled out. So please take this as a guide and adapt it for your club. The outcomes of this grant include safety, access and participation, but you're all aware of that through your application process. This is what your milestone schedule will look like. It's part of your funding agreement, so it's right at the start. Reading milestone 1 from left to right, in order for the payment to be released in this example, the club will need to provide these supporting documents. So a signed funding agreement, a facility use schedule, written evidence of the engagement of a contractor or building company, copy of the updated project schedule if that's applicable. Now, it's only applicable, you only have to give us an updated project schedule if there has been a delay of greater than 3 months since you applied in your timeline. The declaration of conflict of interest. So, for example, the builder is the club president's son or daughter. In the coming days, we will send you a template declaration where you can declare that either you do or do not have a conflict of interest. So you'll all need to fill one of those out, and it's very straightforward. Facility use schedule, I've already mentioned, and a tax invoice. So the tax invoice is the milestone invoice from your club to the Office of Sport for X amount of dollars. So you'll notice there in milestone 1, it's 30% of your total funding amount. This year we've redesigned the milestone schedule to ensure quicker milestone 1 payments to get things moving. Milestone 2 and 3 requires supporting documentation such as photos and written evidence from the builder. Please make sure that the written evidence is on a letterhead from the building company and signed. An email won't suffice in this account. So letterhead and signed. At the conclusion of your project, you will have to provide an audited financial statement. Okay, the audited financial statement must be prepared in accordance with the Australian accounting standards and statutory requirements that govern your accounting and financial records, and/or, we'll get to that, be signed by your chief financial officer or equivalent authorised officer, and incorporate a statement by an independent qualified accountant certifying that the financial statements present fairly the grant has been spent solely on the project and in accordance with the agreement. So that's a lot of jargon, but it's all in there, and we can talk through this with you if you need. But it's all in the agreement. It's all very clear.
Garlic bread's not ready. That's all.
Sorry. Oh. Before we execute the funding agreement, if anyone has their microphone on, can you just press mute for me? That'd be great. Thank you. Before we execute the funding agreement with you, we'll let you know what type of audited financial statement we require from you. So we'll contact you about that. The acquittal represents a fairly common profit and loss statement from an accountant. And this is the final milestone. Okay, you can see the section A in the budget is all the income from different sources. So this is where you'll put your club's minimum 25% co-contribution. Section B is the total construction costs. Section C covers any administration costs such as project management. And now a good check for this is to ensure that it is done correctly, is that the amount for subtotal A, so have a look, subtotal A should be the same as when you add the two amounts for subtotal B and C. So A equals B plus C. As per the program guidelines, any costs incurred to prepare your grant application is not to be recorded here. The Office of Sport uses performance reports for each milestone after milestone 1. We do not require one for milestone 1. We use these to gauge how your project is tracking. It is the same process each time, so it's simply a matter of completing the same type of information for each milestone. Okay, have a look at the performance report. It reads from left to right. I've coloured each milestone in different shades of blue to differentiate them. We'll populate the milestones, deliverables, and milestone evidence. What you need to do is enter your allocated milestone amount, and that's in your funding agreement. Now, committed funding is any bills that you've received but not yet paid. Actual expenditure is any payments that you have made to trades, etc. When you've done that for your milestone, fill in the totals at the bottom, and please note that all these figures exclude GST. They exclude GST. Just want to clarify again that you do not need to provide a milestone report for milestone 1, and we also do not need invoices from your trades for milestone 1. We simply want to get the milestone 1 payments out the door to get you moving. You'll complete 2 facility use schedules. So you will complete the first facility use schedule as supporting documentation for milestone 1, and you'll need to do another one 12 months post-project completion. This way we can measure the difference the project has made on the usage of your club. So we want to see a return on government expenditure. We want to see the difference it makes. As per the program guidelines, you will be required to acknowledge the New South Wales Government in places such as your website, annual report and events. You'll need to notify us 2 months prior to any event such as an opening ceremony. This way we can invite the Minister's office to send a representative to attend. All of this information is on our website by following the link on the screen down the bottom there. You'll also find it in your funding agreement. The link will take you to a document that shows you how you need to include government logos and all other information. It's all there. It's really straightforward. Okay, some frequently asked questions that we've kind of put into we've got 6 questions. So I'll go through them one by one, and hopefully this may answer some questions that you may be thinking of at the moment. So what if work can't start straight away? So a funding agreement can be established now with a future start date, but this needs to be within a maximum of 6 months for the project to commence. So needs to be within 6 months. What if my project is delayed and I can't meet my milestone schedule? If a delay is unavoidable due to things such as environmental impacts, the Office of Sport may consider a variation to the milestone schedule in the funding agreement. Next, what if I need funding up front to start my project? So 30%, as I mentioned before, 30% of the grant funding will be released upon approval of milestone 1. And we really hope to get all these funding agreements back executed with the facility use schedule and the other supporting documentation, and we'd love to have 30% paid to all of your clubs before the end of financial year. So how do I demonstrate that I've achieved a milestone and for payment to be made? A milestone report with supporting evidence such as a letter of works completed from a builder, photos, quotes and invoices demonstrating expenditure will be required. Once the Office of Sport has assessed your milestone as complete, we will request an invoice from you so we can make the payment. So how long does it take for a milestone report to be assessed and payment made? So depending on the information provided, assessment and payment is usually within 30 days. Finally, are there any other timing requirements for when funds need to be spent? So funding should be expended and the project completed within 2 years of the date the formal funding agreement is signed. So that's the funding agreement that we want signed in the next couple of weeks. Okay, if you have any questions about the funding agreement, please send them through to this email address as well, and we will provide a response as soon as we possibly can. I myself will be working on most of these, and Lauren Clark you may meet in the future as well. So your contact officer will reach out to you very soon with your draft funding agreement, a facility use schedule, and a guide to help you with your documents. Okay, so the infrastructure grants email is up on the screen there. Take special note of that one. That's where we want all correspondence to start flowing into at the moment. Usually with these type of programs, we create a good contact with the grantee, so you'll be able to email us directly. But we really want everything at least CC'd in here for now. We want everything to go into infrastructure grants. So I'd just like to open up to the floor. Remember, I'm here to answer questions. We also have Claire Green available from the Office of Sport. We have Kathy. We have Chad from Legal. If you have any questions at the moment, just open up your microphone, open up your camera, and dive in.
Hi, Kerry Burke from Pambula F57 Club. How are you going?
Great, thank you.
I'm on a call, so I didn't see the email address. Could you read out the email address that we need to contact?
Yes, so, it's infrastructure grants at sport.nsw.gov.au.
And the good thing is, Matt, we'll send a copy of the presentation out to everyone. So you'll all get a copy, will go to your email address, so it'll be in there. But the funding agreement that you get sent will come from that same address as well. So a lot of the correspondence, we want to have one point of contact with everyone. So there's a log basically of all the information coming back and forth.
It's Ash from Fingal Rovers Surf Club. I just want to ask, are there any requirements of the builders involved? Do they need to have federal accreditation or anything like that?
I'll take one. I'll take that one. I'm just going through the agreement now. Actually, rather than take up everyone's time right now, I'll actually take that one on notice, and over the next day or so, we'll be providing a consolidated list of responses that we can provide. So I'll take that one on notice for you.
Cheers.
And all those clarifications, Ash, we'll make sure that we document them and we'll get them out to everyone, so everyone will get the same information. So if you're thinking you want that information as well, we'll make sure that gets out to everyone. Probably one of the key things I'd say, Chad, is to make sure that if you do a contract with a builder, that they may have their own workers' compensation and public liability as well. So if the club doesn't have that in place, if you're a very small surf club, which I know we've got one or two, just make sure that whoever you're contracting has that in place.
Matt, Roy Wakeland King from Thirroul. Thanks again for the support for our projects. Greatly appreciated. Just a couple of quick questions. Just going on that, we've retained a builder. We've got a contract with them, and I think they would meet all requirements. We'd be very interested if there's any other accreditation requirements, if we could get that ASAP. The other one, if I could, is just in terms of recognition obligations. I've got the specs for those. In terms of timeframes and when you need those, that recognition up and running on our website, and also the signage on our construction site.
So as soon as you, I guess, have the signage ready, it can go up on the construction site straight away. Chad, do you have anything else on timings for those?
I think the general rule is as early as possible. So if you're if you're wanting to put a press release out or a media statement or social media post, the earlier you can get it to us, the better, so that we can just run through it, approve it, and not hold back your timeline in terms of letting your members know. Just for reference for people, Clause 13 of the funding agreement deals with public announcements and acknowledgement. So I'll direct you to that in the first instance. But then if you have any additional specific questions, feel free to send them through to the infrastructure grants email address, and we'll respond as quickly as possible as well.
No problems. I'm just on that. Sorry, quick follow-up. So we have to run them past you for approval. We've already had some media interest around ours, so apologies if we jumped the gun. We're just responding to a media inquiry, but
That's okay.
of which we did
Sorry.
acknowledge the government's contribution, by the way. But yeah, so I just want to check that we need to run all public stuff past the office first.
I don't think you need to run every public post past us. Definitely, if it's something like a sod turn or a key milestone in the project where there might be a media opportunity for the minister or for the government, then as much time as possible about that would be appreciated. If it's a response to a question from a local journalist about what the project is and when it's going to be completed, then those things don't need to be run past us. But of course, if you could pass on, the recognition of the support from the government, then that would be appreciated.
Yeah, no problems. Thank you.
Roy, if it helps, obviously we have lots of shell releases, and most of you would have been contacted by your local member as part of the process, potentially. That quite often does happen. So local members were given shell media releases. So if it supports you in giving you copies of some of that content, we can provide that to you as well. Sometimes it's easier if you're working on something, you've got something to work with and half the media releases prepared for you. Some of that's already on our website. So if you want to refer journalists to our website, sometimes that's the easiest thing for a journalist to work with as well. So basically, a lot of the information is already in there so that they can just run with that. So obviously the quotes from the club, etc., that's up to your club. There's obviously some core quotes already that Lifesaving New South Wales, for example, have prepared. In regards to the signage, we would prefer for you to send through, and we usually do the endorsement of signage. So if you're going to put building facade signage up, anything like that, any formal publications, we would prefer for you just quickly send it off to the template off to us at the infrastructure grants email address. And we can turn that over like very quickly overnight, basically, just get that branding sorted. So we just run that by our comms area and they'll endorse that very quickly for you. So I'm happy to help you on that sort of branding stuff if you just send it through to the infrastructure email address.
Yeah, no problems. Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate it. Thanks, Chad.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry, Kerry Burke from Pambula Surf Life Saving Club again. I was just wondering if we were going to go for a variation on our grant application, would we just submit that in writing to that infrastructure address, I take it?
Yeah, so contact us on the infrastructure email address and then we'll give us as much information as you can. We'll then send you out a variation request form. So it's formalised in the way that we need that information. Once that's done, you can submit it to us and then we will, submit it for approval.
And it's probably important to note if it's something you're looking at scope change, the quicker you could let us know about that, that's really important. If it's a time delay, because we haven't developed your funding agreement, it's really important that everyone knows that you're approved for your funding on the scope that was put forward in your application. So if it's got significant scope change in regards to what you're thinking of doing, please start to make contact with us as soon as possible in regards to that. So send something off to us and we can start the conversation straight away.
Thank you.
Well, we've got Chad. There must be more questions.
I've actually got a question. This is Heather from Kilcare Surf Club.
Hi.
Hi. Can you just confirm then, so do we need a signed contract of engagement with our contractor before submitting the funding agreement to you?
It's actually part of the supporting documentation to achieve milestone 1 and to execute that funding agreement. Yep. So it was earlier on in the milestone schedule. It would have been one of the points there as supporting documentation. So we do need evidence of the engagement of that builder or build construction company. So however you can provide that as, I guess, irrefutable evidence that they have engaged the contract, that's what we need to see.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that probably, like just Matt, that probably leads to the size and scope of your project. So
Sure.
if obviously it's a one builder, more significant contract, we'd like to see that formalised, you know, with the detail that's obviously going to support you in where you're sitting with your contractual arrangements with the builder. If it's something where you're, you know, engaging someone to do a very small job, and they have given you email evidence back that they're agreed to that quote, and that they can start the job within the 6-month period. That's what we're trying to look for. I suppose the thing for us is we need to have these projects built and delivered and within the 12 months of the 2 years. So we don't want to see anyone in the position, and we all know that right at the moment there's a supply chain issue with the building industry. So we want to make sure that you're in the position where you can deliver. So just think of it, and Matt will be happy to answer questions in regards to what sort of evidence you need in regards to that. I think we've got Jennifer, Matt, with her hand up.
Great, thank you. Go for it, Jennifer.
Hi guys, thanks very much. Great to be a part of this and looking forward to working together. Just on the point, part of the funding that Warriewood won, we agreed that Northern Beaches Council would undertake the procurement process on our behalf. And due to the value of the works, we have to go through a market process. So in terms of having a contractor engaged by end of June, that's a little unachievable. However, I did mention it to council today, and we're going to see what we can do in terms of at least putting our approach together and the timelines so we can, get it moving as quickly as possible. Do you have any thoughts on that and how we can maybe do it differently or something?
Chad?
As much as we said in the presentation that this is the funding agreement and how it looks and how we would like it to look, there's always going to be circumstances that are unique and particular to a particular recipient that means that they don't fit the mold. For something like this would be one where we're happy to speak to you offline and actually talk about this in more detail. It may be that given your particular circumstances, and once we know them, the appropriate delegate in the Office of Sport might be comfortable in changing the requirements for the first milestone or for the milestones in relation to advance funding prior to a contractor being engaged, noting that it's got to be engaged through council. So that one, while it looks like I'm sort of handballing you off for tonight, it's this is like a particular type of scenario that we need to talk further with you about. And once you have the email from your Office of Sport contact, please open up that dialogue.
Yeah, no problem at all. That's great. Thank you. All good.
Probably we've got Claire from the Office of Sport. So the other thing is probably one of the key tips Claire would always point out to you is give yourself a little bit of flexibility in your milestone timelines. So if you're very ambitious like we are and saying let's have our funding agreements done by the 30th of June, if you're ambitious with your milestones, please I urge you to sort of give yourself a couple of like a month or two's flexibility, because we'd rather you be saying you'll deliver by December, even though your expectation is you hope to deliver by October, to allow for that extension of time. As long as you're meeting our deadline of, delivery by the 2 years, we don't want to see people coming back for variations constantly for timeframe delays. So have that conversation with your contractors now to make sure that, you lock them in so you can be more secure around your timeframes.
And in your milestone schedule, you only need to have to mention the month. You don't need a specific day within a month. You can literally just write July 2021.
Marty?
I'm at Warhope Bonny Hill Surf Club, Mid North Coast, New South Wales. If from the first time frame, the 30th of June, is there a minimum period before the next one, or can we, because our project, even dollar-wise, is big and they'll be on the roof of the building, we're getting a new solar system. If they can do that within 30th of June, say 6 weeks, is there a minimum period that we have to wait before we do the next one, or are we just good to rock and roll?
No, not at all.
Okay,
so
cool.
if you can, I guess, meet all the requirements for milestone 1, we'll move ahead and pay that straight away. If you're ready to meet all the requirements for milestone 2 a week later, let's go. Let's pay that.
Oh, okay, cool.
And we, like I said before, we want this funding to go out to the clubs that need it, and if we need to speed up, we'll do that. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
And probably one other tip, the difficulty, just thinking of that, Marty, is when we're moving from one financial year to the next. So if we could try to avoid having any milestones in that June period, that makes it very difficult for everyone. But also when you're moving into a new financial year, it's harder for us to bring forward a payment like that, for example. So if you are asking us for something that transferred from June to July, we plan on an annual financial year cycle. So, we're budgeting that, so much will be sent this next financial year. So if you can sort of avoid that June, we can bring things forward if, funding is available. But if you've said you're going to do it the next financial year, that's when it makes it a little bit more difficult. When it's within the same financial year, not a problem to bring delivery in early.
Okay, so the first milestone is 30th of June, which is this financial year.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the majority of our project in particular will be done within
July.
6 months or July, August, of the next financial year.
Yeah.
So we're over the 2 anyway, aren't we?
Yeah,
21 and 21, 22.
Yeah. Well, the aim is to get you your first milestone before 30th, and then your next milestones will all be in the new financial year anyway. So that's all good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Claire Green, is there anything you'd like to add? You've done many funding agreements to the process.
No, I think everyone's covered everything. Just be mindful that you don't back yourselves, so you don't actually put milestone 1 in June and then milestone 2 in July and milestone 3 in August, unless you think you're going to meet them, because it's for most people it's a bit unrealistic. So just as Kathy said, just ensure that you give yourself ample time to get all the evidence that's required to meet that milestone and submit it at the time that it is needed to be. It sounds daunting, everyone, but it's a pretty easy process. So we're all here to help. So by all means, reach out if you need it.
And I think probably just the key thing is, I know it sounds a little bit like 12 months later, we ask you to report on your usage. Part of that evidence is like what we really need as government. One of our KPIs for Office of Sport is actually utilisation of sporting infrastructure. So as an office, we support obviously the infrastructure, but we support sport competitions and sport and health in general. We're in a really fortunate position at the moment with stimulus funding being around infrastructure, and sports being able to get a segment of that, which is so exciting. And, just the fact that we can, commit to that ongoing $4 million for the next 4 years is great for everyone's planning. So, we are asking a little bit from you in regards to 12 months later to do that post reporting for us. But it's just for your information, it's really important for us to demonstrate the usage a surf club gets. We know that out there in the community, when we had bushfires, when we've had, drought in places, floods, quite often it's the surf club providing those emergency service support as well. So all the benefits that you do out there in the community, we are also always trying to, not everyone's involved in sport or surf clubs, so we need to promote those good positive things that you do back up through government and keep getting the funding that we can then distribute out to our recipients. So when we ask for that information, there's a lot of good justification around why we're trying to gather that data. Evidence is always a good way of getting more money. So if we can just get your support on that. I know it's a little bit hard because we're all, we all go back after work and we go do volunteering, and it's this more, but we're happy to support you in whatever needs to be done. So I think someone just said we would be happy to. Oh, okay, great. Yep, yeah. Thank you. And that's the other thing. We're selling like the fact that surf clubs are multi-use. Like it's not just around, your surf club members. Quite often you're supporting a local community group in your facility. So reach out to Matt and other staff in regards to what does that mean and look like and feel like for your surf club. It's all pretty simple, really.
So any more questions? That's it. Maybe last call on questions now. And that's about it. We are really excited to administer this program coming up. We see what you do week in, week out. We're really, I guess, lucky to be part of this process. So thank you for what you do. We hope to make this process as easy and as approachable as we possibly can. So please reach out if you need us, and good luck everyone with your projects. Thank you very much for your time, and yeah, we'll touch base soon. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.